Vice President Kamala Harris kicked off a tour focusing on economic opportunity today. The first stop of her nationwide tour was in Atlanta, that key city and that key battleground state. The vice president worked to drum up support with African American and young voters.
We have so many entrepreneurs. We have so many people who have incredible ideas. They are innovative, hardworking, ambitious, have aspirations, have vision. None of that we lack for in the community. But for most folks, we lack access to the resources that will feed those ambitions and those aspirations.
And our Nidia Cavazos is following it all in Atlanta for us. Nidia, good to see you. So what exactly is the purpose of this tour and kind of the significance of starting it in Atlanta?
Hi, Caitlin. It's nice to join you this afternoon. And well, like you said, Vice President Kamala Harris was here in Atlanta, Georgia, and this was to officially kick off her economic opportunity tour. The importance of this tour was to pretty much highlight what the administration has been doing when it comes to economic policies and what the administration has done when it comes to serving low-income communities and also minorities and how they have benefited from several economic policies from the Biden and Harris administration. But overall, the importance of Harris's visit to Atlanta is that Georgia is a battleground state, and it is one of the key states where they are trying to recruit Black voters. We know that Black voters were part of an essential group that was critical to Biden's success in 2020, but it is also a group that the Biden and Harris campaign and administration are currently having a hard time engaging. And so this economic opportunity tour was officially launched in Atlanta, but it was specifically targeting this minority group. And they were pretty much here to say the administration has served you, and they were here to outline every way that they've been able to do so.
And Nidia, this comes as we have new CBS polling in some key battleground states, not in Georgia, but in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, where a majority of voters there are saying that they feel the economy was better under Trump than it is now. How much of this tour that the vice president is embarking on is an effort to try to change that feeling or perception?
It's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to change voters' perception here that, in fact, the economy and their financial status was not necessarily better under a Trump administration. And so they're out here trying to change voters, focusing on minorities. Today, they were focusing on Black voters. But essentially, this speaks to their efforts. And now the Biden and Harris campaign, they've made it clear that they're aware of where the polls stand, but they're tackling these issues. We also have President Biden as well as Vice President Harris, who are both actively campaigning on economic policies and trying to change this perception one voter at a time and one battleground state at a time.
Nidia Cavazos, 6 months to go until Election Day, so they've got some time, but the pressure seems to be on. We appreciate your reporting. Thank you so much. And for more, let's bring in Payne and Leslie Sanchez. Joel is a CBS News political contributor and Democratic strategist, and Leslie is a CBS News political analyst and a Republican strategist. Great to see you both on this Monday. Thanks for being here. Let's start with Kamala Harris and this outreach to minority voters. I mean, Joel, we've seen in our polling that Biden's support among Black Americans has dropped compared to his level of support in 2020. How concerned should the campaign be about that?
You should be concerned about everything. You should panic about nothing. That is what I would tell any smart political strategist right now.
Joel Payne's words of wisdom.
Joel Payne, words of wisdom. I mean, look, I think you should absolutely be concerned about it. Black voters are obviously a key block in Biden's 2020 victory, particularly in a state like Georgia. So you've got to have confidence with those voters, or make sure that those voters have confidence in you, your economic remedies, and kind of tell the story of what the last 3 years have been for them versus what they were the 4 years prior under Donald Trump. And I can tell you, talking to folks around the president and the campaign and the White House, they think they have a good story to tell. So not surprising that they would embark on this. I think you're going to see more of it. And I think you're going to see more targeting of these communities of color. That's a place where Trump is making gains against Biden. It's not necessarily with white voters. Actually, Joe Biden, it seems like from our polling, seems to be kind of holding serve there. It's with those communities of colors that he's struggling.
Yeah, Joel, that's a good segue to Leslie, because Leslie, we've talked so much over the past several years about how Trump has made inroads among Latino voters, but this drop among Black support is really notable as well. I mean, is there a real avenue there for Trump?
It's unprecedented. I don't think you can really put a fine enough point on how significant it is, not just for Trump, for the Republican Party. Consistently, if you look at Latino voters, consistently for the last 11 elections, it's about 31.5% support. For longer than that, it's about 9 or 10% support among Black voters for Republican candidates, and Trump has doubled that. Will they stay with him consistently? Will that erosion kind of settle and calcify? I think Republicans hope so. But it's really this economic issue, and I think that's the disconnect. I love the campaign slogan, the campaign message. I'll put it on a T-shirt and wear that around, Joel. I love the idea, but in practicality, we can't convince something of something other than their fundamental belief. Like in our business, we change attitude, their intention of how they see the candidate, and ultimately their behavior, how they vote. But they are looking at their bank account every day. They are looking at that car they want to buy. They are looking at those high interest rates they have to have and the prices of just basic goods and services. And that is where kind of the rubber meets the road in terms of the pain pressure and the pain point for communities that don't have vast amount of savings, working class voters. And in many cases, those are the communities of color.
Yeah, and I mean, just generally, voters don't necessarily measure the economy the same way that we do on paper, right?
I like a data sheet, just like anybody else.
Exactly. It is oftentimes about what you're feeling. I mean, Joel, to that point, what was so significant about our new battleground state polls were, and I wonder if we can put this graphic up on the screen, is how voters are feeling about the economy now. Not feeling good about it now. But what was interesting to me is that looking back at the Trump years, so now looking back at the Trump years, 60-something% across these battleground states viewed it favorably. But when we asked them the same question back in 2020, when Trump was president, they viewed it unfavorably. So what's going on here? And this seems to be kind of a warning sign for Democrats.
Incumbency disadvantage, right? And I think we're in an era where I think voters are generally skeptical of anyone who is in power, who's responsible, because frankly, they haven't been happy with anything from Democrats, from Republicans. Obviously, I'm a Democrat. I think there's a better story to tell. But if you just talk to your average voter, they don't have faith and confidence really in everybody who is supposed to be in power. And so I think what you're talking about there reflects the fact that probably the hardest thing to be right now in politics is an incumbent president. We might be in a valley where we have a lot of, the White House going back from one party to the other party, because you're just not seeing resurfacing and rebuilding of trust in institutions like you're going to need to see for voters to feel confident again that their elected officials are listening to them.
Yeah, and Leslie, to that point, what does that mean for Trump? I mean, I think Trump has benefited from kind of, being out of office, and you kind of remember things differently when someone is out of office. But, now obviously he's standing trial. He's in the public sphere every day now. Is there an opportunity for the Biden campaign to kind of, message to voters about Trump? Or do you think, how does he navigate this?
I think people have already made up their mind what they think about Trump. It's astounding. It doesn't take a lot of education. You don't need a treatise or some sort of big, encyclopedia, old words. That's Google, kids. To understand what people feel, about the former president. But what I think when they look at their own circumstances, their personal finances, they'll say interest rates were low. There was a possibility of buying a home. There was a possibility of taking care of my parents, in a way that I could stretch that dollar. And now they don't have those options available to them. So it's very much those parochial decisions. And then you add some of the other pressures. They see the border security. They see, there's tremendous frustration. And I would agree, it's mercurial. And they're going, as long as we are highly polarized, there will be a series of too close to call elections. And I think that's what we're going to see in these particular five battlegrounds.
It seems interesting, though, that they've kind of memory hold 2020, COVID, right? Which, again, they were very unhappy with Donald Trump's administration of government during that period of time. But it does seem like, for whatever reason, maybe it's a bit of voters, out of sight, out of mind, trying not to remember that time. It doesn't seem like voters are holding Trump accountable for 2020 for COVID. And by the way, talking to folks around Biden, they want to remind voters of what Trump was like leading the country through that crisis period. I think they feel like that's an important closing argument as well.
Yeah, that's really fascinating, because that's something I certainly noticed covering the Republican primaries, that was just kind of memory hold, I think is a good way to describe that. Joel and Leslie, we will have plenty to discuss over the next 6 months, but this is a good start. We appreciate you being here. Thank you.